Hello, my name is Maureen Brennan. I'm a technical advisor for the Federal and State Grants Unit here at the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. This is one of a series of very brief webinars that we've put together and have posted with the R3 Notice of Funding Opportunity, March 1st, 2024. The idea behind these webinars is just to introduce you to some of the concepts that you'll need to be familiar with if you do receive an award under the R3 NOFO. So today we're going to talk about the stop payment policy. So the purpose of the policy is basically to get a good handle on grantees that are in compliance with all of the rules of the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act. So all of the agencies that are subject to the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, or GATA, are subject to this Grantee Compliance Enforcement System, the GCES. And part of GCES is the Stop Payment List. So the Stop Payment List is this snapshot of grantees that are currently out of compliance with the grant management requirements. Let's talk about how it's going to affect you. So there are actually two payment statuses on the Stop Payment List: the temporary stop payment status and the permanent stop payment status. So failure to provide a required fiscal, programmatic, performance, or audit report within 15 calendar days of the due date, and failure to submit a required refund payment or missed payment from an approved payment plan are both reasons that might trigger the temporary stop payment status. In addition, failure to clear fiscal or administrative monitoring issues, failure to respond to an outstanding audit report or on-site review correction for deficiencies and material weaknesses, including payment of questions cost, and any fact-based discretionary issues documented by the authority are all reasons that might trigger this temporary stop payment status. So it's temporary because these are issues that can be remediated. There's something that you can correct. However, permanent stop payment status is for issues that cannot be remediated. Agencies are placed on the permanent stop payment status because they are not qualified to do business in Illinois. So this means that the state agencies cannot do business with agencies on the SAM.gov exclusion list or with agencies on the permanent stop payment status. That means that agencies on the permanent stop payment list cannot receive grant funds from the authority, even if they have a signed agreement. So what will put an agency on the permanent stop pay list? Serious offenses that cannot be remediated. Example of these issues are a conviction or civil judgment for fraud or a criminal offense, violation of a federal or state antitrust statute, embezzlement, theft, forgery, bribery, falsification or destruction of records, or tax evasion. As it says on the slide, any offense indicating a lack of business integrity or business honesty that seriously and directly affects the grantee's present responsibility, in violation of grant terms or a transaction so serious as to affect the integrity of the process, of the program, I should say. So as you can see, the difference between the temporary and the permanent statuses are the temporary can be remediated, but the permanent ones are so serious or compelling that they affect the actual integrity of the program. Fraud is another really big issue that would, especially that documented by the Office of the Executive Inspector General, or another government entity would be another reason that is so serious that you'd be placed on the permanent stop payment status. Now, under the terms of the Grant Funds Recovery Act, grantor agencies may withhold or suspend the distribution of grant funds for failure to comply with certain requirements, including and without limitation, filing timely required fiscal and/or performance reports. And let me emphasize that once you're on the stop pay list, all payments from the state will be stopped. So if you're out of compliance with authority requirements and that triggers the stop pay, that means that payments you may receive, grant funds you may receive from other state agencies will also be frozen. Likewise, if you're out of compliance with a DHS requirement and that triggers your placement on the stop pay, then the grant funds from the authority will be frozen as well. So each grant specialist will be responsible for ensuring that grantees comply with their grant management requirements. But if a deficiency is identified that would trigger placement on the stop payment list, you'll be notified by the authority, and there's a form letter that you'll receive that will detail the issue triggering the stop pay, instructions on how to correct the deficiency, and the date by which that deficiency must be corrected. But please note, if you are placed on the stop payment list, we'll send you a notice of the placement of the stop payment list, and you'll be placed on that on the GATA implementation website. And placement on the stop payment list makes a grantee ineligible to receive funds from the authority and from other state agencies. I can't emphasize that enough. But we will continue to work with our grantees to address those deficiencies while you're on the temporary stop payment list. Any grant-funded program activity may continue while the deficiencies are brought into compliance, because stop payment does not exempt a grantee from being held to the grant requirements. So including submitting your periodic reporting and reaching the performance goals listed in the agreement. So when compliance is reached, when you've worked with your grant specialist and you're back in good stead, you will be removed from the stop payment list on the GATA implementation site, and you will receive confirmation from the authority of your removal from the stop payment. One last note, while we're presenting this information, and there's another recording that talks about the dispersals and the required reports, it is the delinquent submission of any report, an audit report, a performance report, or a required policy that can trigger the stop payment. So it's not just your fiscal and performance reporting that will trigger that non-compliance. It's any documentation that the authority requests of you. If it's not submitted on time, then that may trigger the stop payment. So here's a list of all of the recordings in this series of very brief snapshots of the authority processes and issues that you should be paying attention to as you develop your application for NOFO funding. If you have any questions about the content of this recording or any of the recordings, or if you have questions about the NOFO, I would encourage you to use the NOFO Q&A and to submit your question. We do post both the questions and the answers on a regular basis on the NOFO site. Thanks for joining us.